All right, we want also to rope in our panelists who are here this morning to take us through those stories and a raft of other issues. Remember, today is a big day for NASA as well. They will be unleashing their party manifesto today, and we'll be covering that live for you from the venue, of course, giving you a live wire-to-wire, wall-to-wall coverage of that. Allow me to introduce this morning to you Ambassador Kembi Gitura, who is a senator from Murang'a, and also is a deputy speaker in the Senate. Also, we have with us Senator Professor Anyang Nyong'o from Kisumu. We have with us Dr. Shem Ochuodho, who is a global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Also, Farah Maalim, the deputy speaker, former deputy speaker of the National Assembly, and also the deputy leader of the Wiper Party. Also, we have with us the deputy leader of Amani National Congress and former Minister of Agriculture, Kipruto Arap Kirwa. Good morning, gentlemen. Farah, yeah, let's just drill deeper into it, because we have this particular story that is developing, and it seems many Kenyans still, they're, still wondering where is the Unga. A lot of clips that have been doing rounds showing Kenyans scrambling when they go to supermarkets. As far as the Unga politics is concerned, there is no Unga still, and we saw also Right Honorable Raila Odinga going to Uchumi supermarket to actually get a packet of Unga, but the shelves are empty. So what is really going on? And this is a story that now has been, a fodder for NASA as well, coming against Jubilee. Let's begin with you, Senator Kembi.
I'm not sure I'll be the right person to answer that question.
You tell us where the Unga is.
Yeah, you put the senator in a very precarious, very bad situation.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I think it's a question for all of us. It's just that it started with me.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that I can be able to answer that question, because is there Unga in the shelves at Uchumi? I haven't been there. I don't know. But what I know is that the government has insisted that there is going to be Unga enough for all the people in the Republic, pending the harvest that is expected after the long rains that we've had.
That's it? All right, let's hear from Professor Anyang Nyong'o.
Well, I don't know why this crisis came, because in the past, when we've had shortage of maize, we have imported. I remember when in the coalition government, there was a looming crisis coming ahead, and we planned and imported maize at the right time, at the right price.
Yes.
There was no shortage of maize. I think it's just a question of planning by the government, really, to know exactly whether we have strategic grain reserves in our stores. And if those strategic grain reserves are not there, then we import at the right time so that we don't have this kind of crisis.
Yes.
When it started, we understood that some maize was being imported. That kind of went haywire. I don't know, I didn't follow quite clearly, but if it had succeeded, the shelves would not have been empty today, but somehow it didn't. So I think really, in the final analysis, as it had been in the past, the government is expected to make proper arrangement for grains and for Unga, and avoid this kind of embarrassing crisis where stories are told left, right, and center to explain the shortage, and nothing really is given for certain. So I think it's kind of embarrassing, really, at this point in time, especially for the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Agriculture and the government as a whole. And any other speculation, to me, is still speculation, because having been in government, I know exactly what the procedure should have been.
All right, thank you. Dr. Shem Ochuodho.
Debarl, I'm not conversant with the politics of Unga, but what I know is that from my family, we're trying to convert a problem also into an opportunity. We eat in my home Unga maize from home, which is locally grounded. And I'm just wondering, when I hear we're talking of getting Unga from Brazil, from Ethiopia, and so on, I am told that Unga is sold in Uganda, I'm not sure whether it's true or false, at 60 shillings. What we sell here, 150, and so on and so forth. And I'm just wondering where our business people, not to take advantage of, why don't we get Unga? I remember attending a summit, an African summit, about 15 years ago in Kampala, where both President Museveni and President Mugabe were present. The late T.R. Odhiambo was still there, and Museveni was telling us, look, Uganda can feed the whole of Africa if certain things were right. So I'm wondering why we're not getting our Unga from next door. But again, as I said, I'm not conversant with the politics. Only looking at the picture of the Prime Minister on the back page of The Nation, I am seeing some pembe on the shelf. So even though we are saying they're empty, they may not be enough, but there are a few pembes there. So
Pembe the
on the
brand,
last page.
Yes.
So, but yes, Unga seems to be a serious problem. It's incumbent upon government, both national and at the county levels, to deal with this issue.
All right, thank you.
But also for Kenyans to convert it into an opportunity, a business opportunity.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Farah Maalim.
Yeah, I want to believe that that pembe is actually not Unga. It is not Unga Mahindi. It is
Okay.
Unga Ngano.
Let's just verify.
That's wheat flour, not maize flour. You see, Debarl,
Yes.
let's call a spade a spade.
But how can you verify it is?
It is.
How? Yeah, there we go.
You don't do shopping for your family. That's probably is a problem. You have to understand even the colors, my friend. The different colors between the one from
Okay, could we just have that particular? Please, let's have the picture of the pembe he's talking about.
Yeah, this pembe.
Which could also mean he was at the wrong shelf.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, if that is Ungangano, then
So-
maybe he was at the wrong shelf because maybe they are not kept together.
Yeah.
But is even assuming that you are correct.
No, they usually kept together.
No. Debarl is asking you a very important question. Debarl is asking you a very important question. How can you tell that Pembe is Ungagano?
Correct.
That's a question. So maybe what the right honorable is doing, and maybe this is my very considered opinion, he's standing at the wrong shelf.
Can I have
right?
my moment? You're a bit.
That's what I think.
But you see,
all this apologies
I can
for...
defend Farah really.
I'm not apologizing. I mean, this
No,
is a very serious issue, actually.
Hang on a minute. Well, I think I know the color myself, and I do quite a bit
So
of
for
shopping.
the purple color, if you may just show it.
So, but then not only that, if that were something different, then the nation itself would have a problem, because it does not say that the Prime Minister said there was none. It said there was none on the shelves.
There's none on the shelves.
Yes. This is a categorical statement.
That's what I wanted to point out.
Absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely. Now, let me tell you something. The system has failed.
Yes.
The system has broken down. This is the staple food. You remember there was almost a revolution in Egypt because of the price of the staple food, which is bread in Egypt, being increased, I think, by 10 cents or 5 cents, something like that, sometimes back. And the whole country was up in arms, because that is the staple food of the Egyptians themselves. And the system has got to be very sensitive to such things. Anything else, but when it comes to maize flour, that's the mainstay of our own, this is our eating habits. And it seems like even those people who do not have that kind of a test before have assumed that test over a period of time, because when I was growing up as a child, not many people from my community used to use ugali and maharagwe, but right now it is the favorite everywhere. You go to the rural areas, you go to the towns. I mean, that's where it is.
Right.
And now that people are even talking about plastic rice, I mean, which is a sad thing, and it's all over in our shelves right now. And I don't know what Kenya Bureau of Standards is doing. The safer thing is to go for Unga Mahindi always. But we have a problem. I mean, the system has broken down. The system has failed. This is the simple thing. The reason why it has failed, don't shuffle it around, shuffle it with the businessmen, or we have a shortage in the country. We did not have the right harvest. We have not given the right incentives to our farmers to plant maize, because we have subjected that to what we call the market forces and allowed profiteers to buy these things cheaply when there's a bumper harvest from the farmers, such that they are not even able to recover or recoup the cost of investment into the thing. And when it's not there's an artificial shortage, we import it from outside.
Thank you.
And political bigwigs make a lot of money out of it. I can assure you on that. So there is that problem. And unfortunately, it's been there for a long time. Bigwigs used to make money out of it, but we never used to have shortages. And I think that's now, this one is a problem. It's in our 53 years of independence, how many years? 54 years of independence. I can't remember of another time when we did not have maize flour on our shelves. I don't know if you remember any time yourself.
I don't.
I can't remember. He's a former Minister for Agriculture, and he will clearly have that in memory. We've never had that. So there is a system, something, an endemic problem in the system that's not been there with us all these times. We've had bad governance in the country for all these years, but I can assure you this one is the ultimate one. It's a backstop for bad governance.
Okay, let's hear from Honorable Kirwa.
Well, it's very interesting. I think I like the way Jubilee shifts the debate. Now we are talking about Unga, when the main debate is where did the maize go? What happened to our farmers who were supposed to be planting maize? The rain started beating us last year and 1 year before, when all of a sudden we got fake fertilizer coming to the maize producing areas. That fertilizer that was meant to be for tea was rebacked and handed over to us as DAP, and yet it was 17-17-0. The harvest that we got was depressed because the fertilizer was not right. Number two, the strategic grain reserve that ought to have been arrested last year and gathered into our granaries, they only managed to buy 800,000 bags instead of the usual 4 to 8 million bags that are supposed to be in strategic grain reserves. Now, the mitigation that the government has been trying to do is too little too late. You cannot sustainably say that you have enough to allow every household to have maize flour, because the usual dynamics of maize is that at a certain period, there is always a certain amount of bags of maize with our farmers as a carryover from the previous season. There is also carryover from Uganda and Tanzania. This carryover was not sustained. And the maize that was supposed to be bought by National Cereals and Produce Board was allowed to be exported to Uganda and South Sudan by the World Bank, by the World Food Program. That is the beginning of the current problem. And as if that was not enough, when farmers were supposed to offload the maize to the market in November last year in the main grain basket of Kenya, they brought other conditions that are so stringent, including if you supply 1,000 bags of maize, you are only paid for 910. 90 bags will go as what they call chafu or dust. Which is not there internationally. And this was just a frustration so that farmers don't get their maize delivered to National Cereals and Produce Board. What happened? They sold it out of the country. What happened? Some of it was wasted through what we call post-harvest losses, which nationally we lose up to 8 million bags of maize. So these are some of the challenges. Now what they are trying to do is to mitigate on an issue that went out of the stable. That is where the problem is. So the narrative is not about Unga, it should be about maize. What are you doing about farmers?
Exactly.
That is where the rain started beating us.
Okay. So that is where the rain started beating us. But we can see also another development, that also there is purportedly there is a plan to import also rice from Pakistan. Pelosi.
But you see,
the other problem I see is about the...
So we are now coming from Unga, now we're going to rice again. We don't know if also will import plastic rice from China. Is that where the country is headed to?
I think we must now look at these things from the real point of view and stop politicizing it. Because if we have plastic rice, and I saw this for the first time I think this week, the talk about plastic rice, then there's an indictment on the Kenya Bureau of Standards. And we cannot have any gainsaying on this. I mean, this is not politics, they cannot be politics. The only question I need to ask is there plastic rice in the market? If there is, then what we need to do, I don't know whether there is or not.
It is.
And
I don't confirm that.
I don't know whether or not you've written it yourself, or you just, it's an allegation. The point I'm making is that I think it is time that the Kenya Bureau of Standards comes out now and issues a statement, because it's a matter that should be worrying to our people, issues a statement whether or not there is plastic rice in the market or not. But there is no point of us sitting here and making politics out of it, because some of these things are things that are institutional and should be dealt with immediately. I would not want to, I saw a clip last evening and I thought, if it is true there is plastic rice, then it is putting people's lives in danger. And I'm not capable, I don't have the capacity to do the situation like that myself. We have the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and it should come out and issue a statement once and for all and tell us the actual position so that Kenyans are laid of this fear of whether or not there is plastic rice. But I don't think anybody here is competent to talk about plastic rice unless they had it in, as a meal.
No, I think
Let's hear from the danger. I see the real danger, Debarl. I see the real danger of talking here and the ability of misleading Kenyans about issues that I know all these people sitting here. I know that none of them have that capacity. None of them can tell you they made rice last night. So the important issue is that yes, there is that outcry, and yes, there are people who should be able to talk about it. And I want to hope that before the end of today, they will have issued a statement on it and allay the fears that Kenyans are having.
But the trouble is, Kembi, that in Kenya we have institutions that are charged to do something. Kenya Bureau of Standards, National Studios Board, and so on. But you know, and I know, and everybody knows, that these institutions are quite often subjected to political control. And the worst thing in our country, for a long time, not just now, for a long time, is that we mix business with politics. In the US and other countries, if you're a businessman or something, once you enter politics, you set aside the business into a trust or something, and you distance yourself. And there are institutional checks that make sure this is done. Here we don't have it. So you'll find that somebody is a cabinet secretary or even in the president's office, and they have tremendous interest in the importation of maize. So they will do everything possible to make it easy for them to import maize, even when they're sabotaging national policy. In the case of Kenya Bureau of Standards, the Kenya Bureau of Standards might easily have said, we don't do this. But because of political pressure, they cave in and let the plastic rice come in. So what we need to do is tackle the root cause of this problem. Unfortunately, Kembi, under Jubilee government, this has been happening too frequently.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Let me just finish.
You understand that, Professor?
Let me just finish.
You know I've got a great respect for you.
No, let me just finish.
But you understand that
just let him finish, sir.
No, I'm not, but I'm just stating as historical facts. Unfortunately, we have had too many series of such incidents. First, I remember when we had the maize crisis, both in the NAC government and the Jubilee government. A committee was set up, and I think Honorable Kipruto Kirwa, you are under the Agriculture Minister, to deal with the crisis, present a cabinet paper and a solution. Now, I would have thought that with this looming maize crisis that seemed to have begun quite some time ago with what Kirwa is saying, there should have been a cabinet committee set up to deal with the maize crisis and giving information to Kenyans. Unfortunately,
on a regular basis, what is really
unfortunately, as you say, Kenyans lack information. Like this issue of plastic rice seems to have started as a rumor and finally it happened. Now, I know I come from a county where we grow rice in the Nyando and the Hero irrigation scheme. It has a great potential of giving rice to Kenyans. But of course, in there is something called the National Irrigation Board, which should help the supply of water to farmers. The whole system has broken down. So we need system retooling to deal with this agricultural crisis. I think system retooling is very important. But unfortunately, it has not happened. I think that NAC government and the coalition government made a lot of effort to do this. But unfortunately, when governments change, so people now invent new institutions to do this, which don't work. For example, what has happened in the Ministry of Agriculture? Collapsing so many parastatals into one huge superstructure doesn't seem to be working. So the original institutions are not there. Like for example, the sugar area, the sugar board went. We do not know which institutions in government is now dealing with sugar. And this institutional problem, to me, I think is what is causing our problems now. Now we can see attempt to restructure things now affecting us as Kenyans. We are facing the possibility of using plastic rice. We don't have sugar on the shelves. And let's confront these issues.
Debarl, you notice that the debate has shifted. Yes, we are not dealing with the issues that you had raised. We have moved on to
the institutions. Of course, we are talking about institutions and the sugar board. If they are really truly working, we're still on the rails.
The thing is that those are the institutions meant to deal with the problems. Now, if they are not there, who is going to deal with the problem? I mean, for example, when we had that maize crisis, I remember having to deal with the National Cereals Board completely. Yeah, because that's institution.
But the problem question is, are we really dealing with a problem that is systemic from the institutions when it comes to, you know, the maize flour, first of all, because we have other issues like which are beyond our forces, like the weather, that is affecting it. Or this is deliberate from the government, or as the opposition is saying, to actually scuttle the whole process and use maize flour as a bait to get voters. So where is the real issue? Because it seems now we the mark and mire of so many things as far as the Unga flour is concerned. We don't know if it is politics or if they are really, you know, genuine germane issues down on the ground.
No, they're genuine issues because we can trace it. We can trace it to where it started. I mean, if we follow Kirwa's narrative, we can find the narrative where it started and why it has arrived here. If it had not started like that, we would not have arrived here. That's the point.
Let's hear from Honorable Dr. Shem.
Briefly talk about the institutional arrangements. I'm not ordinarily a supporter of amalgamation of institutions without good reason. But perhaps could share an example from Rwanda. I was privileged to head one of the major strategic authorities, Rwanda IT Authority, which ultimately was amalgamated with two other organizations, one dealing with tourism called Ortipen, and another dealing with investments called RIEPA, Rwanda Investment Promotion Authority, which were brought together now into Rwanda Development Board, a concept I think that's borrowed from Singapore. Singapore has got this monster called Singapore Development Board. Sometimes it works. To be fair to the amalgamation done by the Ministry of Agriculture, I think it's too early to say whether this KRL is going to work or not. It's too early to contribute the failure, the current failure, system failure that we are seeing to that amalgamation. So I would not say it's a good move, neither would I be able to say it's wrong because it's still too early. But having said that, very often one coalition forgets that this function of agriculture and food security and so on is a shared responsibility between the national government and involved government. And so when we blame the national government, and we should blame the Ministry of Agriculture for this, they can't run away from that blame. We should also remember that the county governments, most of which, they're divided halfway, NASA and Jubilee, they also share that blame, but we turn a blind eye to the problem that our own governors, I'm glad some of my colleagues here are looking forward to being in those roles. Let's remember that that's a problem, that's a shared problem between NASA and Jubilee. And probably, with due respect to my good friend, Honorable Kirwa, probably more knowledgeable in this sector than any of us, but when he mentions exports of Unga to the neighboring countries...
Not Unga, it's
maize to the neighboring countries, whichever it is, he is awakening old wounds. We all know the story of exports of maize to neighboring countries. And NASA would be the last to throw mud when it comes to exports of Unga to the neighboring countries, irregularly.
Irregularly. But what is so wrong with the exporting?
NASA has not been in government.
Well, you know, we're talking about, you know, my good friend Pierre Lumumba says the forest is different, but the trees are basically the same. So to that extent, we know that 5 years ago we had a problem of Unga and maize because of exports.
Who was the minister?
I don't know. Tell me who were the leaders.
Who was the minister?
But having said that, Debarl, when we talk about Unga and maize, we know the country has been suffering from hunger and famine due to the drought.
Yes.
Unga is just one important ingredient, but the others, from records of Red Cross, 4 million Kenyans have been starving. I've not been hearing, in fact, at one point we had a session with the CEO of Red Cross, and was telling us, look, both sides of the two coalitions are not bothered about this famine that Kenyans are dying. Why is it that we are just being particular when now it's Unga, and yet we should be talking about the rest of the country suffering from hunger and famine? We need to address it holistically. But agree with my colleagues, that should be government responsibility. Finally, Professor here is talking about the US of yesteryear. What he said about the US government, I'm not sure I would say of it on today's US government. But that's with a light touch.
All right, okay. Let's hear from Farah, briefly.
You know,
whether they are useful.
Debarl, call a spade by any other name, still remains a spade. It still remains that we have a systemic problem within the system, the regulatory, the government, the governance body, and that's why we are where we are. Thanks to the social media, I just want to educate my friends on I've seen myself plastic rice. We actually prepared it in my house, and my wife went through a process, and we found it was a plastic rice.
You bought plastic rice?
Plastic. There are very simple ways through the WhatsApp and through the social media right now in which you can find out. This thing is not just hot in Kenya. It's all over the world. So you can buy it, you know what I mean?
You bought it from a supermarket?
Yes.
And you were not aware it's plastic
we're
rice?
not aware, but then we just, because of the stuff we saw in the social media, we decided to go through our process, cooked it, and then, you can either squeeze it together. If it's plastic, it meshes, it fuses together, and it's just like a ball. You throw it around, and then it goes back and forth. You can also burn it, and it will burn. You see what I mean?
What you're ideally saying is that we have this rice in the market, here in the country.
Plastic rice is fully in the market. Fully in the market. And it's also very shining, because you can tell it, very, very extremely shining. And it's not been here just now, by the way. It's been there for a while. Because from my own family, this women talk about these things. For a while, they used to be told that this very nice rice, which is shining, which doesn't have any dirt. Ordinarily, before you cook rice, you'll have to put it into water. And then it becomes a little bit murky, that water, take away all the chaff and the dirt and the rest of it. This one is crystal clear, because it's plastic. You know what I mean? You put it in the water, and it's plastic. So, and then there are ways to do it. You can burn it, and it will burn if it's plastic. You can put it also in water, and then it all, the very simple density and the rest of it can come on top. You can also, there are a number of ways to find it out, and you can get it in the social media.
Now, who are we blaming for this plastic rice?
Okay, because this has not been verified, so we cannot really also, in the public domain today.
Well, look, I'm glad.
Send panic.
I'm glad Kenyans are looking at these things right now, and they know it, and everybody. You see, that thing, as Senator Kembi puts it, is a very, very dangerous thing, because you don't know the long-term effects of that. And plastic is carcinogenic, whatever.
But you see, it's very easy to...
Okay. Just a moment. Let's say from... finish, we hear from Dr. Kirwa. We'll come to you, Senator.
Okay.
Just finish.
This thing is plastic, and plastic has got a... It's carcinogenic. You can easily get cancer from either cancer of stomach, or any other cancer out of it. So it's a bit dangerous, and something needs to be done, and done very fast. And that's what you call... it's a crisis. It's an emergency matter that people need to respond on to. Coming to the issue of the Unga, Kirwa put it very well. Policy has not been good for our farmers, particularly the maize farmers in this country, for a very long time. And it's also being a cash cow. Every time there's an artificial, what do you call shortage, and then big wigs in the system make a lot of money from it because they import it from outside, and then there's a bumper harvest in there, then you allow it to go out there at a very low price, because you say the market forces now has to determine this, so the farmer ends up selling his maize at below, and then there's the issue of fertilizers, which is imported by and large by the government all the time. These things are there. It's a problem. You cannot look for ways to seek excuses for it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Kirwa.
Thank you. Let me start with the issue of amalgamation of institutions. Even if that institution is, a number of institutions are amalgamated, it doesn't lose its functions. And therefore, amalgamation must be done in a way that various departments are still absorbed, and those departments are expected to operate as normal. So the debate may not really be about whether the institutions are amalgamated, but it's a question that some of the institutions have lost their functions. Because the last time I knew is that there is a law that any agricultural product must meet certain phytosanitary conditions before they are allowed to get into the country. That is a function of KEFIS, and even as I was driving to this place, I still see KEFIS is in operation. And therefore, that should have been done. Kenya Bureau of Standards ought to set the standards and keep those standards as they were. And that means if those institutions are working, then we should not be having any agricultural produce coming into Kenya without meeting the required standards. Number three, the issue of acting. Many of the CEOs in various institutions in government, and even 65 ambassadors a number of ambassadors are, there are no substantive ambassadors. So part of the systemic issue of Jubilee is the fact that they are keeping people in acting capacity far too long. Some have been acting for 2 years, some have been acting for more than 1 year, and this makes the officer in that institution not have the requisite capacity and courage to make decisions. The other issue that is important is the issue of food security. You cannot apportion to governors. Food security is still the purview of the national government. They ought to know how much are we producing in Kisumu, how much are we producing in Kitale, and what is the cumulative total of the food that we are producing for purposes of meeting national food requirements. Because food security is synonymous with national security. The moment you cannot feed your people, you have lost the capacity to govern. The other issue is the issue of inflation. Much of it has happened because of inflationary measures that have taken place. Even if you are to bring maize from outside and you mill it and you sell to farmers, what are you telling the other farmers who are producing maize and they ought to sell it at the normal market level? We sold our maize at 2,300, and later on, through political intervention by one of the guys, we sold it at 3,000. But the truth of the matter, the bulk of the maize had either gotten out of the country or it had been sold at depressed prices. Now we are importing maize at 4,200. Who is benefiting? The external farmer. So this is a vicious circle. And without really politicizing the issue, the problem is here with us. And what we fear is what we are increasingly getting, that some of the stocks are being held for election day, so that on election day there will be two lines, one queuing for Unga and the other one queuing for voting, so that you delay as you queue for Unga as people are voting, especially in areas
but where, are you getting
where
this,
they know.
Where are you getting this information
We are getting
from?
information. We are dealing with the public, and we are members of the public, and this is what we are getting.
All right.
So we are not making statements without the requisite information from society.
All right. Yeah. Briefly from Kembi before we take a short break.
I think it's not good to lose that thought.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to do propaganda.
Yeah.
And I think it's very dangerous to do propaganda with food. Because all of you here have eaten. Yeah?
Before we came here?
Before you came here, or you're going to eat here. No, you are doing very dangerous politics. Because it's politics of food, and you want to incite Kenyans by being alarmist.
No.
We know there is hunger. We know there has been famine. We know that the rains failed. And we know that food was brought, maize was brought here. Is it sufficient or not? I don't think so. The photograph at the back page of The Nation is showing the right Honorable Raila Odinga at a supermarket. We've been arguing for 10 minutes whether that is unga ngano or unga mahindi. That's what we've been arguing. None of you has an answer to this. So I think it's very dangerous to do what is happening now, to play politics with food. When I listened to Farah Maalim talking about Egypt, for instance, and the crisis about food, I think that's not fair. Because that's inciting people who may not have sufficient food when you have sufficient food. When my very good friend Kipruto Arap Kirwa talks about Unga coming on the election day, I think that's also dangerous. I think that's a security risk, because this is a statement made, and Debarl, you've asked Kipruto Arap Kirwa, where is he getting the facts? It is very easy when you're not in government to do this kind of propaganda, because you have no facts. You just throw in statements, and you expect, and you know people are gullible. They might take what you're saying for true. But if you ask, like you have asked him, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, where are the facts?
Yeah.
He'll tell you he has no facts, and he knows he has no facts. So what he's doing,
I know the
what
facts.
he's doing, in my view, is something that should not be done now as we approach elections, because whatever party affiliations we are in on this table here, at the end of the day, our main interest should be about the unity of our nation as a people. Because elections will come and go. But if you do politics of food with people who are hungry and tell them that Unga will come on election day so they don't go to vote, I think that is very, very dangerous, and I think that should not be allowed. And I think that is what I would term incitement.
Thank you. We need to take a short break.